A quiet, snowy night blankets the sprawling metropolis. A young man enjoys a peaceful evening stroll with his fluffy companion. Suddenly, his calm walk is shattered by a violent street brawl erupting nearby. He sighs in frustration, realizing he's stumbled upon a drunken fight. The altercation escalates, and one of the combatants is sent hurtling directly toward him. To his utter shock, his tiny dog morphs into a massive, protective beast. The enraged brawler turns his fury on the man, demanding he get out of the way. Realization dawns on the protagonist as he sees glowing energy. These are powerful spirit users. The two fighters cease their squabble, their combined power now focused on the cornered man and his dog. His heart sinks as he understands their apology was a lie. He's their real target. The two assailants unleash a furious, coordinated attack, determined to overwhelm him. A powerful blast of energy sends the protagonist hurtling backward across the street. Defeated on the ground, he silently questions if power just gives people the right to be cruel. The story then cuts to a bright, sunny morning in the bustling city center. At his office, the protagonist is immediately confronted by his boss, who fires him on the spot. His coworkers stare in disbelief, unable to intervene as he's publicly humiliated. He tries to explain his exhaustion, a direct result of the previous night's brutal encounter. But his boss refuses to listen, using his short, efficient reports as proof of his supposed laziness. The young man realizes this is just another instance of his boss abusing his authority. While packing his desk, he reflects on the futility of humans dragging each other down. The protagonist's sudden defiance leaves his boss utterly baffled. He declares he's finished being subservient, scattering papers in a final act of rebellion. Seizing his dignity, he grabs his suitcase and announces he's quitting on his own terms. His enraged boss hurls a final desperate threat about an outstanding loan. Free from the office, he walks towards the subway, leaving his old life behind. He muses that he'd been wanting to quit for a while, seeing this as a chance for a few months off. Reality hits hard with a notification for a huge loan payment, forcing him to reconsider his break. The arriving train jolts him from his thoughts, his attention snapping to the station map above. The train's abrupt movement throws him off balance, sending him careening backward with his luggage. Catching himself at the last second, he breathes a sigh of relief, unaware of the imposing figure standing right behind him. He glances sideways, noticing a triangular BFA insignia on the imposing man's coat. On the crowded train, he ponders the meaning of the acronym, standing uncomfortably close to the mysterious figure. His mind flashes to the Bureau of Fairy Affairs, an agency that polices spirit users to maintain social order. He scoffs internally, believing the powerful organization is nothing more than a hollow title. The train's sudden movement shoves the dense crowd against him, testing his already frayed patience. Seeing his stop approaching, he resolves to escape the suffocating train car immediately. He struggles to maneuver his bulky suitcase through the throng of departing passengers. Outside, he drags the surprisingly heavy luggage up a steep hill, his frustration mounting with every step. Overwhelmed by the day's events, he unleashes his anger with a sharp kick to the suitcase. His luggage tumbles away from him, adding a final, comical insult to his miserable day. The force of his kick bursts the suitcase open, revealing its shocking contents. He stares in utter disbelief at a mysterious, glowing purple egg nestled inside. Stumbling backward, his mind reels with the impossible notion that it's about to hatch. The egg suddenly levitates from the case, enveloped in a strange pink energy. His mind instantly flashes back to the imposing BFA agent from the crowded train. Panic sets in as he watches the egg wobble precariously, terrified it will fall and shatter. As the egg plummets toward him, his only thought is to avoid making an enemy of the BFA. He makes a desperate dive, throwing himself to the ground to safely catch the falling object. Clutching the surprisingly smooth object, his panic gives way to intense curiosity. Holding it up to the light, he's stunned to see the faint silhouette of a tiny being inside. He inspects the object more closely, realizing the silhouette inside isn't just a shape, but a person. He presses the strange crystal to his forehead, finding the image of what looks like an old man inside to be rather unsettling. Sitting on the pavement, he theorizes he must have accidentally switched his suitcase with the BFA agents. Suddenly, the crystal begins to pulse with an ominous energy, and he senses the figure within is transforming. A colossal, shadowy being erupts from the crystal, its dark power overwhelming him as he questions what he's unleashed. The entity soars into the sky, celebrating its long-awaited revival with a display of immense power. It descends before him, announcing its return to the world as the legendary Spirit King Wendam. The Spirit King ensnares him with a shadowy tendril, demanding to know if he was the one who broke its seal. It reveals that his actions shattered an energy barrier that had imprisoned it for a century, allowing it to finally hatch. Seeing an opportunity, he cheekily asks for 3 wishes, only to be met with the Spirit King's immediate and utter disdain. The Spirit King offers a reward for his freedom, leaving the young man completely puzzled. He reveals his ultimate ability, the power of materialization, and offers to share it through a contract. The mention of spirit power triggers a painful memory, hardening his expression. He recalls a friend who died because of such abilities, vowing never to succumb to that same dark path. Boldly rejecting the offer, he tells the astonished Spirit King to find another contractor. He brushes off the offer with a smug grin, feeling quite pleased with his own magnanimity. The persistent king gets uncomfortably close, but the young man suspects this deal is just a ploy to use him. Annoyed by the rejection, the Spirit King realizes his own vulnerability and the absolute necessity of forming a contract. Dropping all pretense of negotiation, the entity issues an ultimatum: form a contract or watch the world burn. His dramatic threat is immediately undercut as a plastic bag comically smacks the protagonist in the face. He recalls his miserable past, concluding that a world this rotten might as well be destroyed. Unfazed, he challenges the Spirit King to unleash his power, daring him to follow through on his threat. A massive, world-ending explosion of energy tears through the city skyline. He closes his eyes in blissful acceptance, realizing this apocalypse means his loan is finally canceled. His eyes snap open in utter confusion as he realizes the world hasn't ended at all. He looks down at the crystal, questioning why he's still alive, only to see the Spirit King has been reduced to a tiny figure inside. The once mighty Spirit King now has a comically terrified expression, trapped within the crystal. He frantically shakes the crystal, trying to get a reaction from the now dormant spirit. Deciding this is all too absurd, he pulls out his phone to post about the strange spirit egg online. He creates a lost and found post, mockingly describing the Spirit King as a senile old man who dropped his egg. The next day, the city is bathed in sunlight, completely unscathed by the so-called apocalypse. Having dealt with the absurd situation, he calmly makes his way home through the bustling streets. Back in his messy apartment, he finally gets a moment to process the bizarre turn his day has taken. He's shocked to see his online post has already received an immediate and heartfelt reply. The comments reveal a darker side to the BFA, with users sharing stories of their harsh treatment of spirits. He recalls the imposing agents from the train, now seeing them in a more sinister light. Just as he's lost in thought, his phone buzzes with an incoming call, startling him. An elderly woman on the line claims to be the spirit's owner, and he quickly arranges for her to pick it up. After hanging up, he reflects on the spirit's plight, realizing even powerful beings have their struggles. He informs the tiny trapped king that its family is on the way, telling it to be strong on its own. A sudden knock at the door startles him, and he wonders how the spirit's owner could have arrived so fast. Walking to the door, he realizes the incredible speed must be due to spirit power. He confidently peers through the peephole, ready to hand over the crystal. Instead of an old woman, he's greeted by the sight of a stunning and formidable-looking agent. His mind races as he blushes, completely taken aback by her unexpected beauty. In a flash, he decides to ditch his casual look to make a better impression. He swings the door open, ready to greet his unexpected guest. He's now dressed in a sharp suit, holding a rose with a suave grin. He smoothly offers his assistance, suggesting she could have a dream life with him. His romantic advance is immediately shut down as she grabs him by the face. His romantic gesture is met with a forceful shove, sending him stumbling backward. He spots the BFA logo on her sleeve, his shock turning to dread as he identifies her as an agent. She ignores his pleas to talk, launching into a swift and decisive attack. With a single gesture, she unleashes a barrage of sharp ice shards, demonstrating her formidable power. The attack pins him to the wall, the ice shards embedding themselves in the surface around him. A single razor-sharp shard stops just inches from his neck, a clear and deadly warning. Despite being trapped, he tries to smooth-talk the agent, suggesting pain is a prelude to happiness. He desperately argues that even the BFA can't just assault civilians, but she remains unmoved. Realizing his words are failing, he panics and screams for help from the only one who can save him. He looks to the crystal for aid, only to find the once mighty Spirit King dizzy and utterly incapacitated. The agent holds the crystal, questioning what the BFA was truly trying to protect. He rips his hoodie free from the ice, accusing her of arrogance and abuse of power. Their confrontation is interrupted by the arrival of the elderly woman from the phone call. The agent turns to the old woman, demanding to know if she is the one who claimed ownership of the egg. With a bow, the old woman reveals that the spirit inside the crystal is actually her master. The agent's eyes widen in shock as she senses an overwhelming spirit power coming from the seemingly frail woman. Fearing for the woman's safety, he demands to know the agent's intentions. He grabs her arm, insisting that her mission doesn't give her the right to harm an innocent civilian. His heroic moment is cut short as he freezes in shock, blood trickling from his lips. A massive vine has suddenly impaled him from behind, a shocking attack from an unseen assailant. He turns in disbelief to find the old woman smirking, revealing she was the one who attacked him. She calmly explains the egg belongs to the spirit world and warns the BFA to stay out of their affairs. Seen through the gaping wound, the agent's face is filled with horror at the woman's casual cruelty. With surprising strength, the old woman shoves him backward, sending him crashing into the wall. As he lies defeated, the agent identifies the old woman as part of the ruthless spirit mafia. Gravely wounded, he realizes his life is meaningless to them and questions the nature of absolute power. The old woman's hand morphs into a wooden claw as she lunges to snatch the crystal from the agent. The agent narrowly dodges a massive wooden fist that shatters the floorboards. Realizing she's outmatched, the agent decides her priority is to escape with the egg and get it to HQ. Without hesitation, she leaps through the window, making a swift exit from the chaotic apartment. The agent identifies her opponent as a powerful nature-type spirit who can manipulate wood. To counter the wooden assault, she summons massive ice pillars from the floor. Trapped between the encroaching vines and her own ice, she resolves to force a direct breakthrough. The old woman blocks the exit with her vines, making it clear the agent must defeat her to leave. Seeing no other way, the agent launches a volley of sharp ice projectiles at her foe. The attack proves useless as the old woman effortlessly stops the shards with a smug grin. In a burst of speed, the agent appears behind her enemy, pressing an ice blade to her throat. Her surprise attack is thwarted as a massive wooden pillar erupts, sending her flying backward. The old woman now holds the agent's ice blade, taunting her for her failed attempt. Suddenly, the ice blade shatters into glowing particles, catching the old woman completely off guard. The shattered particles reform into a massive energy scythe, which the agent swings down with deadly intent. The powerful attack only manages to graze his cheek, leaving a small cut on the disguised man's face. The old woman's disguise crumbles away, revealing a handsome young man who complains about his ruined appearance. He stands confidently in his true, elegant form, casually wondering how the fight will proceed. The agent stares in disbelief as he confirms her suspicions, identifying himself as one of the Spirit Mafia's 4 heavenly killers. With a menacing grin, he introduces himself as Carl, his red eyes glowing with dangerous intent. The agent realizes the gravity of her situation, questioning why this egg is important enough to attract such a high-level threat. Carl declares that since she has seen his true form, she must die, and demands she surrender the egg. As he speaks, his vines shoot out and ensnare the agent's leg, trapping her in place. Unfazed, the agent offers the crystal, but makes it clear she intends to eliminate him right after. Instead of attacking Carl, she swings her ice blade down, severing the vines that bind her leg. Carl retaliates instantly, launching a deadly barrage of wooden spikes to finish her off. In a shocking twist, the wounded civilian throws himself in front of her, taking the full force of the attack. The agent stares in utter disbelief, completely baffled by his sudden act of sacrifice. He reveals his morbid logic, hoping to plant a seed of guilt in her before he dies. The young man collapses to the ground, his sacrifice leaving the agent stunned and motionless. Her mind reels as she struggles to process his inexplicable decision to protect her. Kneeling beside him, she desperately asks why he would shield a stranger from certain death. He faintly explains his desire to leave a final mark on the world before succumbing to his injuries. She realizes her water-based powers could help, but a wave of despair washes over her as she sees how little time he has left. She cradles the dying man, torn between saving him and accepting his inevitable fate. In a stunning move, she kisses him, deciding it's the quickest way to collect his DNA. Carl watches in disbelief, annoyed at being ignored in the middle of their deadly fight. Mocking their sentimentality, he summons dark energy, preparing to end them both. He unleashes another volley of cursed spikes, further injuring the already fallen man. The agent narrowly evades the attack, realizing she's completely out of time. She blocks Carl's furious strike, their weapons clashing as he scolds her for her defiance. Lying in a pool of blood, the young man feels his life slipping away, his body growing cold and numb. He accepts his fate, finding a strange sense of peace in the unexpected kiss he received. As he blushes at the thought, a mysterious voice suddenly calls out to him from within. Instead of succumbing to his wounds, the young man cheekily asks for another kiss, only to be interrupted by a commanding voice. An imposing spectral figure appears and strikes the young man, expressing disgust at his frivolous last thoughts. He finds himself in a cosmic void, questioning if he's reached heaven, with the irritated spirit standing right behind him. Floating aimlessly, he complains about the lack of pretty girls in the afterlife, further annoying the mysterious entity. The spirit grabs his head, clarifying that this is reality and his physical body has indeed perished. It reveals his soul has been pulled from his dying body, which now lies lifeless in the apartment. The entity explains that his soul will soon fade, but offers a single desperate chance for survival. A spark of hope ignites in the young man, who pleads with the spirit to save him from oblivion. The spirit proposes a contract, offering to restore his body using its own formidable power. Despite his hatred for spirits, he weighs his options, realizing that survival is his top priority. Wary of the deal, the young man questions the spirit about the price of his revival. The entity reveals there's no payment, but the young man remains suspicious, knowing that a free offer is often the most costly. He suddenly fears the cost is his soul, an idea the spirit dismisses as a silly anime trope. Internally, the spirit fumes with regret, admitting it only chose this difficult human because he was the first one it encountered. The spirit finally reveals the true condition. His life will become permanently entangled with the spirit world. With unwavering resolve, he declares his desire to be revived, accepting any consequence. He cheerfully agrees to the terms, much to the spectral entity's immense relief. His mood shifts as he playfully requests a formal paper contract, complete with signatures and seals, much to the spirit's annoyance. As he questions the process, the spirit's form expands ominously, explaining their world has its own unique way of sealing pacts. Dark tendrils suddenly coil around his neck, causing him to panic as the spirit commands him to remain still. He struggles against the spirit's grip, crying out as the dark tendrils tighten around his neck. The scene shifts back to the apartment, where Carl has successfully bound the agent in his thick wooden vines. With a determined glare, she slices through the wooden restraints with her ice blade, freeing herself once again. Now free, she acknowledges the immense power of her opponent, realizing he's a true heavenly killer. She recognizes her disadvantage, her water powers being a poor match for his wood, and her energy is nearly depleted from trying to save the civilian. Carl grows annoyed by her resilience, questioning how a mere human can be so stubbornly persistent. Declaring the fight over, he unleashes a final massive volley of spikes, shocking her with his remaining power. Surrounded by the deadly projectiles, her expression hardens with resolve. Knowing she must block this at all costs, she summons a powerful vortex of water as a desperate defense. Instead of being doused by water, the spikes erupt into a fiery explosion upon impact, engulfing the area in flames. Amidst the fiery chaos, both the agent and Carl stare in utter confusion at the unexpected turn of events. The agent is baffled, questioning how Carl's wood-based attack could suddenly manifest as a fire attribute. A hand wreathed in flames appears as a new voice lectures on the art of winning a woman's heart. Both combatants are stunned into silence as they realize the civilian they thought was dead is now standing. The resurrected young man smirks, surrounded by his own flames, and declares that charm is the key. The agent, completely bewildered by his survival, cautiously asks if he's all right. He smoothly brushes her hair, presents a rose, and announces he's here to collect his reward. Leaning in close, he audaciously requests a kiss as payment for saving her, earning an irritated glare. Carl's shock turns to rage as he realizes the only explanation is that the human formed a contract with a spirit. He concludes the only spirit nearby was in the egg, leaving the agent to ponder the impossible reality of the situation. He smugly confirms the contract, holding up the egg containing the tiny, furious spirit. Carl seethes with frustration, his mission to retrieve the egg now complicated by its bond to a human. Unfazed, Carl decides to simply defeat them both and forcibly break the contract, launching his attack. As the young man freezes in terror, the agent grabs him and yells a warning to move. She protects the terrified young man, who cowers behind her as she questions what kind of being he's become. Carl mocks the boy's cowardice, declaring him too weak as he swings a massive spike. The agent leaps back, carrying the young man to safety as Carl's weapon narrowly misses them. She stumbles upon landing, still dragging the flailing young man as Carl prepares his next move. She erects another powerful water shield, while the boy watches from the ground, seemingly impressed. She desperately urges him to use his firepower again, only for him to admit he's too new to the contract to use it on command. She demands to know how he unleashed such a powerful fire attack, finding it impossible for a beginner. Turning to the egg, he begs the spirit for a tutorial, only to be told he can do whatever he wishes. He counters that anything is not a helpful instruction, feeling completely out of his depth. With a frustrated sigh, the tiny spirit reminds him he's already used the power and must simply channel it again. The spirit explains that his imagination is the trigger. Its power will manifest whatever he visualizes. He turns back to the agent, still puzzled about the spirit's attribute and the concept of doing anything. She explains that contracts are tied to natural attributes, prompting him to guess his is fire and hers is water. He smoothly declares them partners, but she shuts him down by pointing out the flower he made suggests a wood attribute, not fire. He presses for a definitive answer on his attribute, putting the nervous-looking spirit on the spot. Their debate is violently interrupted as Carl's assault shatters the water shield, leaving them defenseless. Carl admits he's surprised as he shatters the remnants of the water shield. He confidently declares that despite their efforts, it won't be enough to defeat him. Inspired, the young man raises his hand, wondering if he can replicate the agent's technique. He successfully manifests a solid shield of his own, blocking Carl's incoming attack. The agent watches in disbelief as Carl's thorny vines slam into the new barrier, causing it to crack. The shield begins to fail under the assault, showing signs of taking significant damage. She asks if he copied her, and he confirms he simply visualized her power to use it himself. The agent realizes the spirit is unprecedented, capable of mimicking any natural element, making its capture a top priority. Carl's relentless attack finally smashes through the replicated shield. Though wounded by the shield's shattering fragments, Carl acknowledges the surprising power they managed to unleash. The young man confidently steps in front of the agent, vowing to protect her from the next attack. With a newfound understanding, he declares he has finally figured out how to control his abilities. Carl, bloodied but enraged, dismisses their confidence and promises to make them suffer. He launches himself forward, unleashing a deadly volley of spikes intended to finish them off for good. The young man focuses intensely, attempting to visualize a defense against the incoming assault. As the attack nears, the agent grows frantic, seeing his power fail to activate and questioning his readiness. She instantly regrets her decision, believing she made a mistake by relying on the inexperienced newcomer. Her regret turns to utter astonishment as a new, unexpected defense materializes before her. Carl freezes mid-attack, his face a mask of confusion as he stares at the impossible sight. The young man reveals his countermeasure, a barrage of solid blocks, born from the imagination of an overworked office worker. He confidently unleashes his next attack, a barrage of giant keyboard keys. The bizarre projectiles slam into Carl's wooden defense, embedding themselves like darts. A bewildered Carl questions the nature of the attack as his defenses begin to crumble. The young man then materializes a giant hamster wheel, spinning it with a smug grin. He follows up by swinging a massive power adapter like a flail, shattering the remaining barrier. The oversized plug soars through the air, aimed directly at the shocked opponent. Carl is slammed by the bizarre weapon, barely managing to block the overwhelming force. Surrounded by floating keys, the young man triumphantly celebrates the power of a corporate drone. A battered Carl stares in disbelief as another volley of keyboard darts is prepared. The final overwhelming barrage smashes into Carl, burying him under the attack. A bruised and battered Carl peeks through the wreckage, unable to comprehend the nature of the attack. The young man smugly explains that his power comes from the mundane suffering of a corporate drone. He gestures, sending another volley of keyboard keys raining down on the bewildered Carl. The bizarre projectiles completely obliterate what's left of Carl's wooden defenses. Standing proudly over the rubble, the young man confidently asks if he's finally won. To their shock, Carl rises from the dust, impaled by keys but still very much alive and furious. The young man's confidence wavers as he acknowledges his opponent's incredible durability. Enraged, Carl unleashes a powerful retaliatory blast, sending debris flying in all directions. The agent summons an ice wall to protect them, questioning why the boy is panicking instead of defending. She realizes that despite his immense power, his complete lack of combat experience makes him a liability. The agent calmly erects an ice barrier, while the boy behind her despairs at his own incompetence. Enraged and bloodied, Carl roars that being pushed this far by a novice is an unforgivable insult to his pride. Unfazed, the young man steps forward, vowing to end Carl as a massive wooden attack spirals towards them. He warns his partner to be ready, sensing that this next assault from Carl will be on a whole new level. The overwhelming force of the spiraling tendrils rushes towards them, threatening to crush everything in its path. As the wooden attack closes in, she explains her water powers are useless and urges him to summon a fire attribute. He closes his eyes, desperately focusing his imagination on the simple concept of a lighter to conjure flames. With a triumphant grin, he successfully unleashes a torrent of fire, engulfing the wooden tendrils as the agent watches in awe. Carl scoffs at the attempt, revealing his weapon as a high-grade tool that simple fire cannot destroy. Realizing their attacks are futile, the agent grabs the boy and they make a desperate retreat as Carl's weapon shatters the floor behind them. The young man defiantly declares he isn't intimidated by Carl's so-called divine weapon. He reasons that if they can't destroy the weapon, they must attack Carl directly, who is surely nearing his limit. With a confident grin, he tells his partner to watch closely as he unleashes his next idea. He leaps over Carl's writhing wooden form, summoning another massive office-themed projectile. A colossal 500-kilogram printer materializes, crashing down onto the stunned opponent. Not letting up, he lunges forward with a power cord, demanding Carl's immediate surrender. He swings the cord like a whip, clashing against Carl's desperate wooden defense. The cord successfully ensnares Carl, who grins maniacally, believing he's found an opening. The young man channels electricity through the plug, preparing to deliver a finishing shock. Carl scoffs, revealing his bark-like skin as a natural insulator, making the electric attack completely ineffective. Seeing her opportunity, the agent gives the signal to execute their final plan. She unleashes a torrent of water, revealing the true purpose of her powers. The water amplifies the electric current, delivering a devastating shock to the ensnared Carl. The young man is left speechless, realizing he was merely bait for her brilliant strategy. Standing over their fallen opponent, the duo confidently believes they have finally secured victory. He turns to his partner with a smile, praising their perfect combination attack. The agent, however, remains all business, already planning to take their captive to headquarters for interrogation. Their celebration is cut short as a massive wooden spike erupts from the ground, narrowly missing the agent. They turn in horror to find Carl's body impaled and lifelessly hanging from a large branch. The agent reveals a shocking twist. The impaled figure is not Carl, but the main body of the spirit tree. The agent realizes the weapon was the spirit's true form all along and vows to pursue it. But the young man suddenly stops her, his expression uncharacteristically serious. She notices he's swaying and supports him, asking about his condition. He suddenly slumps against her, his body going limp as she looks on in shock. She understands he's lost consciousness, his mind overwhelmed by the recent battle. As she falls to the floor with him, she observes that the spirit tree's power is also weakening. Confused, she spots a strange, blob-like entity trying to sneak away. The purple, jelly-like creature, the true form of the spirit, attempts to bounce to freedom. The young man, despite his exhaustion, leaps forward, refusing to let their target get away. He successfully tackles the escaping spirit, holding it firmly in his grasp. The agent deftly flips through the air, securing the captured spirit as her partner stumbles. Now on her feet, she determines she must first stop the young man, who is clearly not in control. Driven by the spirit's residual energy, he charges at her with uncontrolled aggression. She calmly raises a hand, summoning a massive ice wing to block his reckless assault. To completely neutralize him, she encases her rampaging partner in a sphere of solid ice. Trapped and confused, the young man finally snaps out of his trance, questioning her actions. Holding the captured spirit, she explains that he lost consciousness the moment the enemy fled. She notices the spirit's power is still flowing, realizing some of its energy remains inside his body. The agent is astounded that he could move so powerfully with only a fraction of the spirit's energy. She looks at him with newfound respect, amazed by the immense power he wielded on his very first mission. She holds the captured spirit, demanding to know its identity while marveling at its immense power. The spirit manifests a human-like avatar, defensively questioning why it's being pursued. Losing patience, the agent summons ice shards, insisting the spirit answer her question first. The spirit explains it was recently reincarnated with hazy memories, believing it was killed by humans. Its avatar frantically waves its hands, trying to convince her of its sincerity. The agent gives a final, stern warning, making it clear that lying will have severe consequences. Turning to her partner, she reminds him of their contract, suggesting they stick together for now. She gestures to the destroyed room, pointing out that his apartment is no longer habitable. With a sharp look, she declares he has no choice but to accompany her to the BFA. The spirit's avatar agrees, reasoning that the BFA is the safest place to hide while its power recovers. The agent decides her still struggling partner also needs to be subdued. As the young man cries out from the ice, the captive spirit's avatar shudders in fear of the agent. The scene cuts to the exterior of the apartment building, showing the shattered window from their fight. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves of a nearby tree, a peaceful moment after the intense battle. Elsewhere, an injured man with white hair sits against a wall, questioning his subordinate's lack of restraint. He explains to a small wooden creature that he intervened to save it from being completely destroyed. The tiny creature, a miniature version of Carl, is stunned to learn its opponent was so formidable. It aggressively grabs the man's hair, demanding information about someone called the chairman. The man claims his only order was to retrieve the egg, making him suspicious of the chairman's motives. He angrily dismisses his loss as a fluke, vowing to easily crush the beginner next time. The tiny spirit scolds the injured man for his defeat, unimpressed by his tough talk. It recalls how the newly formed contract amplified the young man's power, making him unexpectedly formidable. The white-haired man orders the spirit to recover its strength and report to the chairman. He reveals his escape method, beginning to fuse his body with the nearby tree roots. Now partially merged with the wood, he and the spirit vow to get their revenge. As they disappear, the man's threat lingers, promising to return once he understands his opponent's abilities. Elsewhere, the young man suddenly sneezes in his sleep, as if sensing the threat. He slowly awakens, shivering and complaining about the cold. Looking up, he's confused by the unfamiliar ceiling above him. He bolts upright in bed, shocked to find himself in a stark, unfamiliar room. He slumps over, realizing with dawning horror that he has no home to return to. Holding the captive spirit, he panics over his destroyed apartment, which he worked so hard to buy. Suddenly, the door to his room swings open as a voice reassures him about his old place. The agent stands in the doorway, coolly informing him that this is his new home. She enters with an older woman, introducing the bewildered young man to the vice director. He defensively clutches his arms, scolding the two women for entering without knocking. His complaint is cut short by a surprisingly powerful sneeze that rocks his entire body. Rubbing his nose, he wonders if he somehow caught a cold from the ordeal. The vice director gives the agent a knowing look, questioning if she went too far with her ice powers. Inwardly, the agent admits she may have slightly overdone the chilling when she froze him. The young man overhears their whispering and suddenly remembers his most pressing concern.
He sits up, demanding to know who they are, where he is, and if they'll pay for his ruined apartment.
The older woman presents her ID, introducing herself as BFA Vice Director Hanabusa Kiko and promising compensation. Reassured by her straightforward answers, he begins to think he can trust her, a sentiment the captive spirit seems to share. His partner warns him that he's being hunted by a spirit mafia, making it too dangerous to leave. He presses her for a reason, questioning why the BFA would offer protection without a hidden motive. She explains it's their duty to handle spirit incidents and protect those caught in the middle. Still suspicious, he accuses them of either wanting his power or planning to use him as a test subject. The agent scoffs at his accusation, declaring their purpose is to maintain balance, not exploit anyone. The vice director intervenes, challenging him by asking how much he even understands about his own power. The vice director observes her agent, noting her unusual lack of composure around the young man. Flustered by the question, he stammers, unable to explain the nature of his own power. He mentally questions his partner, who proudly reveals its identity as the Spirit King with the power of materialization. Shocked by the revelation, he accuses the spirit of going senile, sparking an indignant argument. He naively suggests they just fight everyone, but the spirit grabs him, scolding his foolishness. It explains that as a novice, he can't access its true strength, and it's still weak from being revived. The spirit reasons that the BFA is the perfect place to hide while he learns to control his abilities. It warns him his last victory was just luck, but he dismisses the caution with a childish taunt. He internally agrees to stay at the BFA, deciding to keep the spirit's royal status a secret. The two women watch him muttering to himself, wondering what's going through his head. He feigns ignorance, claiming his spirit partner is too senile to remember its own abilities. The agent immediately calls his bluff, certain that the spirit is hiding crucial information. The vice director ponders his unique power, deciding it's best to keep him under observation. She recalls the anonymous tip that led them to him, never expecting such a bizarre outcome. The agent notes the difficulty of the situation, wishing he had parents they could deal with instead. After he continues to deny knowing anything, the vice director decides further questioning is useless. She orders him to stay, but he defiantly declares he's going back to the home he worked so hard for. He accuses them of destroying his apartment just to study his powers, refusing to be their guinea pig. The vice director's promise of full compensation stops him in his tracks as he realizes she took his bait. Seeing his opportunity, he cheekily asks just how much compensation he can expect for a new place in the city center. The vice director coolly states the compensation is a flat $200 million, leaving the young man utterly starstruck. He excitedly confirms the currency is dollars, his mind reeling from the massive sum. Regaining his composure, he questions their immense wealth, but his spirit partner explains their government funding. He grows suspicious of the spirit's knowledge, but it reveals it could sense the outside world even while dormant. Believing his future is secure, he happily accepts the deal, only for the vice director to reveal there's more. She offers him a $20 million annual salary with bonuses, an amount that shocks the agent standing nearby. The young man is floored by the salary offer, realizing it's more money than he could have ever dreamed of. He cautiously agrees to consider it, insisting on checking the contract for any hidden clauses. While he secretly celebrates his massive score, the vice director informs him he must undergo a customary measurement. The word measurement catches him off guard, and both he and his spirit look on with suspicion. He finds himself standing alone in a vast high-tech chamber, dwarfed by its immense size. Looking up at the complex structure, he's completely taken aback by the scale of the facility. He nervously asks if they plan to use some strange power on him, while his dizzy spirit partner rattles inside its prison. From a control room above, the vice director explains this is where they will test his attribute and rank. Without further delay, the vice director's finger hovers over a large button to initiate the test. Seeing the process is about to begin, he frantically waves his arms, trying to get them to wait. His panic escalates as two automated turrets suddenly emerge from the wall and take aim. A massive piece of machinery descends from the ceiling, adding to his growing terror. Overwhelmed with fear, he presses his hands together, desperately pleading for them to stop. The agent scoffs at his cowardice, but the vice director calmly suggests they give him a moment to compose himself. The vice director agrees to his plea, pausing the test just before it begins. As she lifts her finger, the menacing turrets retract back into the wall. He breathes a heavy sigh of relief, clutching his chest, momentarily saved from the terrifying machinery. His spirit partner mocks his cowardice, but he fires back, defending his very human fear of being shot. Pulling himself together, he asks for an explanation of the test, wanting to know if his life is in danger. The vice director reveals the machine is a top-tier system that will attack him with 5 attributes to measure his power. He's completely baffled by the concept of attributes, his face a mask of pure confusion. The agent is stunned by his ignorance, while he sarcastically confirms he knows nothing. Resigned to his cluelessness, the vice director decides she must start with a basic lesson. She begins her explanation, detailing the 5 core elemental attributes and other variant energies. She lays out the 5 power ranks for spirit users, from the lowly beginner to the legendary special class. She attributes his instant power-up to a rare combination of his own talent and his spirit's immense energy. Just as she concludes the lesson and moves to begin, he frantically interrupts, still clueless about what to do. Losing her temper, the agent berates him for wasting everyone's time with his constant stalling. Her powerful voice rattles them both, leaving the boy and his spirit partner reeling from the sonic assault. He comically questions if her shouting is another form of attack, but his spirit knows he's the one who angered her. He immediately resorts to begging, clasping his hands and feigning ignorance to escape her fury. Seeing his cowardice, the vice director orders her agent to demonstrate the test, an assignment the agent clearly resents. The vice director pins the responsibility on the agent for bringing him in, but she argues it was just a mission. To motivate her, the vice director offers a 10% cut of his future rewards, which the agent accepts as an education fee. The vice director wearily laments adding another troublemaker to her plate, already having her hands full with someone named Mio. The agent sternly agrees to the demonstration, while the boy eagerly thanks her for the lesson. Stepping into the chamber, the agent confidently signals she's ready to begin the demonstration. The vice director orders an evacuation, revealing the test is calibrated for a special rank, forcing the boy to flee. From the safety of the observation room, he notices the turrets are inactive, questioning the test's setup. His confusion turns to horror as a hidden wall reveals an entire arsenal of heavy weaponry aimed at the chamber. Without warning, a torrent of fire erupts from the walls, completely engulfing the agent in a blistering inferno. He watches the fiery spectacle from a safe distance, relieved he's not the one facing that overwhelming attack. Inside the blaze, the agent stands completely unharmed, protected by a powerful sphere of shimmering energy. As the agent effortlessly manipulates her power, his spirit partner notes with awe her perfect mastery over her abilities. She counters the inferno by summoning a powerful geyser of water that erupts from the floor. The torrent of water smashes against the ceiling, dousing the weapon systems. Annoyed, the vice director watches as her expensive equipment begins to short-circuit from the water damage. She frantically warns the agent not to break their most expensive testing system. The agent simply smirks, enjoying the chaos and preparing to push the demonstration even further. Resigned, the vice director initiates the next phase of the test, switching the attack attribute. The chamber's systems unleash a massive wave, simulating a water-based assault. The boy can only stare in disbelief as a disaster-level tsunami materializes before him. Unfazed, the agent stands calmly as the colossal wave swirls around her, creating a massive vortex. In an instant, the entire high-tech chamber is completely submerged under the powerful flood. From the observation room, the boy wonders if the watery chaos has finally subsided. The agent coolly reveals her own water attribute is the reason she was completely unharmed by the tsunami. The vice director initiates the next phase, announcing the arrival of the wood attribute attack. The agent's confidence vanishes as she prepares to face what she calls the most troublesome element. Without warning, sharp wooden tendrils erupt from the walls, attempting to pierce her defensive barrier. The boy tries to deduce the elemental matchups, now pondering the weakness of the wood attribute. The vice director watches with keen interest, eager to witness the agent's growth against this top-tier challenge. The wooden spikes transform into massive tree trunks, threatening to crush the agent's cracking energy shield. Watching the overwhelming display, the boy is struck by a sudden, unsettling feeling of a forgotten memory. Annoyed by the relentless assault, the agent unleashes a powerful blast of energy to fight back. She counters the wood with razor-sharp crystals, slicing through the thick tendrils with ease. Her crystalline barrage shatters the wooden assault, clearing a path through the chaos. From her booth, the vice director watches with a satisfied smile, impressed by her agent's newfound power. The boy can only stare in awe, completely captivated by the incredible display of strength. He then recalls the assassin who defeated Mio, realizing the true danger he faced as his spirit partner reminds him of his lucky win. She explains that the agent had already weakened the assassin, and that wood normally resists lightning. It was the assassin's prior water attack that created the opening for the boy's electricity to be effective. Humbled by the revelation, he accepts his spirit's warning not to let his victory go to his head. The agent stands calmly in the aftermath, the chamber floor littered with broken wood and shimmering crystal fragments. With a smug grin, she casually plucks a falling crystal from the air, a picture of absolute control. With a triumphant smirk, she hurls the crystal shard like a missile straight at the remaining weapon systems. The shard detonates in a fiery explosion, and the agent scoffs as more of the expensive equipment is destroyed. From the control room, the vice director glares, furious that the agent intentionally wrecked their valuable gear. With the destructive demonstration over, the vice director announces that it's now the boy's turn to face the test. A section of the floor slides open, granting him access to the now wrecked and debris-filled testing chamber. He stares down into the chamber, sarcastically noting the sorry state of the high-tech facility. He excitedly praises the agent for her incredible power, but she dismisses his compliments with a cold huff. His eyes drift back to the wall of menacing turrets, a stark reminder of the danger that awaits him. He confesses that witnessing such overwhelming power has left him genuinely shaken. His spirit tries to reassure him, but he argues that fear is a perfectly normal reaction to what he just saw. The agent sighs in exasperation at the boy's nervous hesitation. She offers a rare piece of advice, telling him to visualize a barrier that adapts to incoming attacks. Eagerly taking her words to heart, he prepares to attempt the technique. He confidently imagines a simple bowl-shaped shield, believing it will be an easy task. His attempt results in a formless, shimmering puddle of energy on the floor, far from his intended shield. He realizes his energy is unstable, and his spirit partner sternly reminds him to maintain even control. Before he can adjust, his uncontrolled power erupts into a chaotic splash. The boy is caught off guard as his own energy splashes over him, struggling with its unexpected properties. Losing her patience, the vice director announces the start of the intermediate spirit power test. He desperately signals he isn't ready, but she ignores his plea and presses the button to begin. The turrets unleash a torrent of fire, initiating the first phase of the test. Panicked, the boy desperately tries to manifest a bowl-shaped shield as his spirit urges him to defend. He succeeds in creating a literal porcelain bowl, which surprisingly withstands the inferno. The vice director and the agent stare in disbelief, stunned by his bizarre porcelain creation. His spirit partner hesitantly accepts that his unconventional defense is somehow working. The simple porcelain bowl glows under the heat, proving remarkably resilient against the flames. Intrigued by his wild but effective defense, the vice director decides to escalate the test to a special rank. The boy complains to his spirit that the rising temperature feels like he's being cooked alive. He suddenly brightens with a new idea, while his spirit partner worries about being steamed in her containment. Without hesitation, the vice director presses a button, escalating the intensity of the assault. The turrets unleash a barrage of high-intensity lasers, which harmlessly deflect off the porcelain bowl. He suddenly senses a new presence, turning in shock as the very air behind him seems to crack.